Hello, my dear students, friends, and everyone. Once again, welcome you all to my channel, JK English Studio, a room for learning English. Today, I'm here with you to study and discuss the CBSE Class 10 English from the book First Flight, the second chapter, Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. Before we proceed, if you haven't subscribed my channel, do subscribe and press the bell icon so that you get notification of my upcoming videos. The chapter Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom is an autobiography. So what is an autobiography? In the simplest way, it is an account of a person's life written by that person or by the same person. So let's begin with Nelson Mandela as an author. Or let's get to know little information about the author himself. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary, political leader and philanthropist who served as president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. He was the country's first black head of state and the first elected in a fully representative democratic election. He was born in 18 July 1918 in a small village called Vezo near Umtata in South Africa. Died in 5th December 2013 in Johannesburg, South Africa. He was awarded with several awards like Nobel Peace Prize, Bharat Ratna, Presidential Medal of Freedom, and many more. He had his education from the University of South Africa. Now let's look into the introduction of the chapter. This chapter is an extract from the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, the first black president of South Africa. Excerpts from Long Walk to Freedom include description of the inauguration ceremony, citations from his speech, his journey to being a freedom fighter, the struggle, along with a tribute to other freedom fighters and countless other people who fought for their freedom. In South Africa, a brutal practice named apartheid was followed. Apartheid refers to the discrimination between people on the basis of their race. It was one of the most brutal society where dark-skinned or black people were deprived of their basic rights. This lesson or the chapter gives us an overview as to how Nelson Mandela, along with others, carved their way to a society where there will be no discrimination on the basis of their color, caste, race, age, or gender. Now we will look into the explanations of the chapter Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Students, the content of the chapter is given in a slide. Mostly it is in a paragraph wise, and I'm giving you the explanation. Remember, I'm speaking only the explanation part. So let's begin with the first para. Here the author says, 10th of May was the day when Nelson Mandela, he himself, sworn in as the first black head of state or the first black president of South Africa. It was after many years of struggle that his anti-racist party came into power. Until then, the seat had always been occupied by white presidents. That is why the author referred to the day as bright and clear. He also says it was a morning full of hope. Days before this date, I mean to say before 10th of May, many notable personalities started congratulating him for his victory. For the first time in the country's history, so many people, so many international leaders came together for their inauguration ceremony. The ceremony took place in an open circular building made of sandstone consisting of union buildings in the Pretoria city. Like I mentioned before, it was after many years of struggle. For decades, the seat had always been occupied by the white presidents. But now, the sight was different. The gathering of different colors and nations of black and white coming together, supporting together for the installations of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. Here in this paragraph, the author is saying that it was a lovely and beautiful autumn day, and he was accompanied by his daughter Jinani on his big day. First, the two vice presidents took an oath. Mr. De Klerk was first sworn in as the second deputy president, and Mr. Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as the first deputy president. Then when his turn came, he pledged or took an oath, or he was committed to respect, protect and abide by the Constitution, and to devote his entire life or self into the welfare of the country and its people. The author also mentioned some parts of his speech where he said that everyone by his presence there confer or give glory and hope to the newborn liberty. He means to say that by the presence of everyone there, it was giving rise to hope for a new beginning. In his speech, he said that out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, he meant to say that the previous rulers were discriminatory and lasted for long, but the ones who are given the opportunity to rule now, the African National Congress or the ANC, would stand up against discrimination. He is glad to host a ceremony with the presence of global leaders. He said it is an achievement in itself. There was a time when South Africa, for practicing apartheid, lost all its international political relationships. But now, when there is no segregation on the basis of race and gender, other nations are happy to have healthy democratic relationships. Finally, they or the ANC have come to power, and they pledge to make everyone proud. He further thanked everyone, especially the international leaders, for joining them in celebrating their achievement, which is a step towards an equal society where every human will be treated fairly. He also mentions that after great struggle, they have finally achieved political freedom. His government promised to free everyone of the still existing poverty, hardship, and inequalities of all kinds, along with assuring everyone of the country where no community will be considered inferior. He then exclaims that never, never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. He wants to say that from now on, freedom should rule, and freedom will rule in this beautiful land. And no one in this beautiful land will again experience the oppressions of anyone from any kind. And he prayed to God that God may shower his blessings on their land, saying, "Let freedom reign, God bless Africa." Just after the newly elected president's address to the audience, an impressive arrangement of fighter jets, helicopters, and soldier transporters or troop carriers raised everyone's heads up in the sky. It symbolized perfection as well as military respect and loyalty to democracy and obedience towards the free and fair elected government of the country. Here in this particular paragraph, the author is trying to tell us that the high commanders who have won medals for their bravery also saluted him and promised their loyalty. The author also mentions that he was well aware that these commanders who were now saluting him would have arrested him under the previous law or rule, as during the oppressive white supremacy he was considered to be a criminal. Then the air show finally ended up by making of the South African flag in the sky from smoke beneath the fighter jets. Here in this paragraph, the author remembers the day as the playing of two national anthems of the country, one of the whites and the other that of the blacks. The version of the whites singing Nkosi Sikelel' iAfrika and the blacks singing They Stem, the old anthem of the Republic Africa. On that day, no one knew the wordings of the anthem of the blacks, but Nelson Mandela, the author, was very confident that everyone would soon learn this anthem that they once hated. On the day of the inaugural ceremony, the author was remembering the days of past when this whole system of apartheid emerged. It was in the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before the author's birth. It resulted in inequality and inferior treatment of dark-skinned people or the black people. They were deprived of their basic fundamental rights in their own country or in their own motherland. As a result, the structure created and formed one of the world's most brutal and inhuman society. The system that began long before the author was born. The system also created an atmosphere of extreme cruelty and injustice for a particular part of the community. Now, when he, the author, is in his 8th decade as a man, he along with countless others have changed this entire system that treats humans as humans, irrespective of their color, caste, gender, or age, recognizing the rights and freedoms of all peoples. Here in this paragraph, the author is saying that this equal and free country was the result of sacrifices of countless other men and women, the African patriots, who have fought all their lives for this day. The author wishes if he could thank them all, but unfortunately they didn't live to see the result of their courage. We also understand that Nelson Mandela, the author, gathered his courage and power from all these people and thus wishes to make them proud. The oppression policy or the policy of apartheid scared many people, and it will take a long time for them to move on. The author mentions that this hard time had its negative impacts, but it also exposed a lot of strong and courageous men like Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Chief Luthuli, Yusuf Dadoo, Bram Fischer, and Robert Sobescu, who stood up and raised their voice. The author believes that men of such extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity perhaps would never be seen or known again in the history of South Africa. Thus, it required that level of unjust treatment to produce such great heroes. The author also says that South Africa is rich in minerals and gems, but its greatest strength and wealth lies in its people. The people who were finer and truer than the purest diamonds. In this paragraph, Nelson Mandela said that he gained his strength to stand against the wrong from all the great nationalists, his comrades, or his fellow members, whom he mentioned above, who have even risked their lives for freedom and tolerated ill treatment, but never stopped fighting. He learned that courage didn't mean the absence of fear, but the ability to overcome fear. Now he understood that the man who overcomes his fear is called brave man. The author also said that one is taught by each society to hate humans or others because of their skin, color, age, gender, and religion. No one is inborn with hatred. The author's idea is that if people can be taught hatred, they can also be taught love and brotherhood. Even in their most testing times, or gloomy, or the grimest times in prison, when they were being treated brutally, Nelson Mandela would see a pinch of humanity and kindness in one of the guards, and that was enough to keep him going. He believes that goodness in human beings can be suppressed but can never be eliminated. According to the author, every man or every human being has two responsibilities or obligations in life. A responsibility towards his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and as well as a responsibility towards his people, his community, and his country. Generally, in a civil and human society, or under normal circumstances, a person can maintain the balance between the two. Or maybe a man is able or capable of fulfilling those two responsibilities according to his own inclinations and abilities. But in a country like South America, it was never so easy, or it was almost impossible for a man like the author of his birth and color to fulfill both of those responsibilities or obligations. The author also said that in South Africa, when a person of color or black-skinned people would come up for his society, he would be arrested and taken away from his family, thus keeping them from fulfilling both responsibilities or obligations. In the beginning, Nelson Mandela did not put his people over his family, but it was only later when he realized that in order to be there for his people, he was compromising his duties towards his own family. Or he found himself that he was prevented from fulfilling his obligations or responsibilities as a son, as a brother, as a father, and as a husband, which was not at all easy for him. The author said that he did not have the plan to stand against the apartheid system early in his life. He thought that he was born free to do everything what he could, free to run and free to do whatever he likes. He lived his childhood like any normal child in South Africa. He thought that he was not troubled by the loss of man or God unless or as long as he had to follow the rules set up by his father or the customs of his tribe. The author also said that as soon as he grew up, he began to learn the facts as to how people of color or black-skinned people are being treated. In his boyhood, he began to learn that his freedom was an illusion. And when he becomes a young man, he understands that his freedom had already been taken from him. so he decided to stand against it. He had this urge for freedom from inside, earlier just for himself, as a student, staying out at night, read what he pleased, and go where he chose, etc. But later, for having a basic life not just for himself but for everyone. The author further says that in Johannesburg, they had to struggle for having a peaceful marriage life, family, and basic amenities, which everyone has access to where law and order exists. But slowly, he realized and saw that it was not only him, but his brothers and sisters, all were not free. He saw that it was not just his freedom that was curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like him. Nelson Mandela joined the African National Congress, the ANC, when he realized it was not only him whose basic rights were snatched away, but of all those who looked like him, his brothers and sisters. He had this fire inside him to free his people from the injustice. It was this fire that changed the author completely as a man, from being scared to a brave man. The author also says that he was completely changed or transformed that drove a law-abiding attorney or a lawyer to become a criminal, a family man or a family-loving husband into a man without a home, and a lively man into being a monk or live like a monk. It was the knowledge that he and his people have restricted freedom that made him into a selfless man as opposed before. He was not allowed or couldn't even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms when he knew that his people were not free. According to the author, freedom cannot be divided. Snatching it away from some was equivalent to taking it away from everyone, and that means taking it away from the author. He also mentions that the need to free the oppressor is as high as that of the oppressed, because the oppressor is bounded by the shackles of hatred. He has the weight of all the people who he has tormented, for he carries the curses of all, which means he is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. Finally, the author said that for taking away someone else's freedom and making them a prisoner, he becomes a prisoner of biasness. Thus he is robbed of his humanity and need to be freed. And that's the reason the author says, I'm not truly free if I'm taking away someone else's freedom. So dear students, from the chapter Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, we learn the lesson that gives a clear-cut message. Freedom for a nation is more important than even bread and butter. We must fight against slavery in any form, because enslaved persons cannot live a life of dignity and self-respect. This is what Nelson Mandela wants us to realize. He also cautions or warns us against all kinds of prejudice, and we should not hate even those who oppressed us, because the oppressors are the prisoners of hatred, and we are to free them from their hatred. We must also remember the oppressed and the oppressor are robbed of their humanity. We also learn from the chapter that the brave man is not the one who does not feel afraid, but he is the one who conquers that fear. Nelson Mandela said that every man has his duties towards his country and community as well. So students, that's all for today's class. Hope you all enjoyed and understood the lesson. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe, and God bless you.